is the Oz report for March 9th, 2024. And just like the last weeks, we're going to have a quick look at the overall market dashboard, because there's one thing I want to quickly mention, and that is the price of minerals. In the last 2 weeks, in both weeks, we had the price of raw moon materials up 4%. And this week, moon materials are basically steady overall on average, but minerals are spiking 4%. So this is another indicator for production going up significantly over the last few weeks. Now the MER is delayed, so I don't have the actual numbers to back this up, but I'm pretty sure once the MER gets released next week, we will see production significantly up. All right. As for now, we have pricing to show for this, and these 4% that the basic minerals are increasing most of that comes from titanium. I mentioned last week in the Oz report that the supply of titanium was way short compared to the previous years. It was definitely at a low point, and now this week we saw a titanium jump by 30%, which is super significant. So titanium is way over 5 ISK a piece in JITA, and the supply is still very low. It's still way below one trade day, meaning in JITA there's less than one trade day available for titanium, and that is very significant because titanium is one of the basic minerals, the most basic of minerals, and that governs a lot of especially tier 1 production. So yes, titanium is there, but also noxium and morphite play a larger part in these average 4% increase in basic mineral prices. So if you look at noxium prices, morphite prices, and availability, you see there is a lot of demand in the market, and in the short term at least, there isn't the supply to back that up. Now, it's not, these are, titanium is very abundant in the universe, so that's not the problem. This is fairly short term. So if you are holding on to these materials right now, is definitely the time to liquidate some of them, because the prices we are seeing now on titanium are rather high. The other big thing we have to talk about, I have to show you in the game client, because as we discussed on stream earlier, we have a fairly significant addition to the new Eden store. And that is now Cerebral accelerators and expert systems are available for sale for Plex in the new Eden store. That means that we have Cerebral accelerators that previously you could only buy through packs with real cash in the offline store. Now you can buy in the in-game store with Plex, and that means that we have a real competitor for something like the Master at Arms Cerebral accelerators, and also in a way a substitute for, or more of a substitute for, large skill injectors. Overall, these are priced incredibly cheap, right? And what they did on day one already is they crashed the price of Master at Arms Cerebral accelerators. So these aren't 90 million anymore. They're not. They're not even going to be 80 million anymore. Right now, the sale price is still just over 80 million, but the buy price, you see that here, the buy price for Master at Arms Cerebral accelerators is only 66 million. So that lost about 20-25% in the last 24 hours. Excuse me. So what we're seeing here is a huge impact on the cost of skill points in EVE Online. And in the long term, I really don't see Master at Arms Cerebral accelerators recovering from this. So as long as these Cerebral accelerators are available for cheap in the new Eden store, I think this is going to keep Master at Arms Cerebral accelerators down in the 70 million ISK range. Having said that, though, in order to buy these in the new Eden store, you need Plex, and so we're probably going to see I would guess like a 5%, maybe even a 10% increase in Plex pricing. We already saw a little bump. You can see that here in the in-game graph. The short-term moving average already crossed the mid-term moving average, so we have upward-facing Plex prices, which is not surprising if you see the availability in or the need in the new Eden store. Now, the expert systems, I see much less impact there because I just don't see anyone really using them. Their application is, rather niche, and as we saw from our discussion on stream earlier, there just isn't a lot of people using these nowadays. I think CCP saw that in the offline store. Not really a lot of people were buying them, and now they're trying to put them in the New Eden store to see whether people will trade their Plex in for these expert systems and will find ways to use them. I just don't think they are relevant enough to fill that role that is to allow new players to try new things in game. I think that's just not going to happen with, in theory, good idea. In practice, they're just not, the skills in there are just not relevant enough. Now, let's jump back into the Oz report proper. So we've already covered Plex pricing. Large skill injectors, as you would expect, these have taken a little dip. So we were at a very high price. They've taken a little dip because anytime you introduce cerebral accelerators for cheaper, there's going to be less of a demand in large skill injectors. Now, what's keeping these up, of course, is the instant gratification aspect of large skill injectors. These you can immediately inject, right? With the cerebral accelerators, you have to wait, 2 days, 5 days, 10 days. Some of them are even a month long. So it's a big difference in terms of application. But in the long run, these are substitute goods, and they all give you skill points. So you have to look at one price and consider the other. If we're looking at skill farming profit, we can see that this is now lower than it has been in a very long time. So the skill farming profit is about 550 million per account. If you're subscribing via Plex for 1 year, which is a very middle of the road way to skill farm. Now, this doesn't consider any of these special sales that are abundant. So, if you're a hardcore skill farmer, then your cost base is going to be even lower than this. So yes, you're making a profit, but this profit is about half of what it was, a few months ago. So obviously that's because now Plex price has increased, skill injector prices have decreased, and so overall the attractiveness of skill farming will go down. But we have a long ways to go for this to not be profitable, and so we're still in a good place if you consider skill farming a valid game mechanic. Let's look at some of the other items in game. Let's look at what is trending up. So we already talked about titanium. We still see some moon materials rising up. So this week it was thulium. So it seems like every week there's a different moon material that is spiking. And so this time it was thulium. Also, raging gamma filaments are increasing. Last week it was chaotic gamma filaments. Overall, we are seeing a shift towards gamma filaments overall. And the supply, especially of these raging gamma filaments, if you look at the supply in game, there really isn't that many left. So there is a true demand for these, right? So of course, we talked about this last week as well. This is because one reason for that is because of the Ikatursa got nerfed through the initial damage reduction of the disintegrator weapons on Triglavian ships, and so overall certainly less demand for Firestorm filaments and more demands for the classic gamma filaments, which is your typical Gila fit that runs that. Speaking of the disintegrator nerf, last week we talked about the impact that might have on abyssal materials. So if you look at abyssal materials, crystalline isogen 10, for example, crystalline isogen 10, yes, it's the price dropped a little bit, but really not that much. And even 0 point condensate, yes, there's a downward trend. It continues the slight downward trend, but our price level was very high. So there isn't a crash at all here. And even if you look at the price of heavy entropic integrators or light entropic disintegrator 2s, yes, there is a downward trend, but there's not nearly a crash going on, right? So this shows that there is still a demand for Traglavian ships. There's still a demand for these weapon systems, but it might just be, a little bit of panic selling after the nerf and a little bit of market correction here and there. But overall, there are fewer people running Abyssal still. And so I think overall, these materials are going to be fine and these weapons are going to be fine. So there's no need to panic and sell these. Let's see, what else do we have trending up? Interestingly enough, these Centum A-type multispectrum energy membranes, these are Dead Space modules that are super expensive. Right? These are 1.2 billion a pop. And still, you have 10 to 20 of them trading hands each day. And they spiked from, under 1 billion to 1.25 billion. So clearly there's some sort of doctrine going on, or somebody is trying to own or manipulate this market, but these are almost completely wiped out. Maybe one trade day left, and they're incredibly expensive. So I doubt at this price point people are still buying them, really. What else do we have? If we look at short supply, so what is in short supply? We're seeing some Caldari Navy modules in short supply, and matching that, the Federation Navy fleet colonel insignias that you need for them are also in short supply. We always see skill injectors and Plex are always in short supply, but that's because the market is so liquid. We already talked about the raging gamma filaments. And we already talked about these things as well. So overall, I think that is about it. The last thing I want to mention today is Isogen. So if we look at the price of Isogen this year, it's been dropping all year. And that's because Isogen was the massive bottleneck that we've been seeing in production, especially of larger ships in the last year or two. CCP has introduced measures, as we talked numerous times on the stream. They have introduced measures to bring this price down. It is slowly dropping, right? But don't mistake this as already being a good price. I think it's still overpriced. I think it's going to drop more. So be very, very careful. I know this is trading like 20% under a yearly average, but this is by design. This is a bottleneck. I think it's going to come back down more. So be careful. I would still not buy Isogen, right? But that's, as always, with everything, this is my personal advice to you out there. All right. And that's it. That's the Oz report for March, what was it, 9th? Was it March 9th? March 9th. And we're going to return to the regular stream, and I'll catch you guys next week on the Oz report. Okay.